Welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week we're going to be talking about how to find the best short-term rental opportunities, deal analysis and market analysis, and I am joined by the wonderful Kenny Bedwell from STR Insights. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bart. Appreciate it. Glad to be on.
I'm glad that you're on as well. And I was referred to you, and people have said, talk to Kenny. He's come up with a really great product that's a great market fit. And I'm excited to share with everyone what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're up to in this space, and some of the opportunities that you're creating for everyone. For those of you that are listening, that are going, what is he talking about? We're talking about being able to analyze short-term rental investment opportunities. But I implore you, even if you're in a motel, even if you're in a hotel, there are some bits of information in this episode which are going to be invaluable to you to be able to make some decisions about investment, but also about what's happening in the technology space, and then you can potentially leverage some opportunities that you find in this episode in what you're doing. But before I get going, Kenny, I'd love to understand a little bit more about your background, how you got into short-term rentals and into this space, and then we'll talk about how STR Insights was created and what the idea was.
Sure. So back in 2016, I was recruited to work for Citibank up in Buffalo, New York, and I worked in their equities research division. And we focused on monitoring Fortune 500 companies, their stocks. We made revenue projections, worked on essentially getting big data so that we could make those projections. I was interested in real estate and wanted to get into some sort of fashion. And, the Airbnb rental arbitrage phase hit around that time. And so I jumped on and started with a couple apartments in Buffalo, New York, and really grew up my portfolio of apartments and properties. I purchased some, I rented some. I used my revenue to really build my portfolio up and around that area. And so and it was my side hustle. And then in 2021 with the pandemic, I was doing really well, taking advantage of a lot of hosts that left the market, because there's now limited supply and people still were coming to my area. And that's kind of where we can go into, how I came about with STR Insights. But I mean, that's essentially where it started. I'm making all this money. I've got all these properties. I need to diversify. Where do I go? Where can I invest and find properties that, one, fit my budget, and two, fit my personal preferences?
Yeah, look, I like the story, well, your story particularly, because you're more of a numbers guy. You're the kind of chap that can go and look at data and really analyze it better than a lot of other people can. And then you've got the other side of your business and who you are as the entrepreneurial side of growing your portfolio and being smart with some of those investment decisions. I'm going to give you a word of warning. At the later on in the episode, we'll also talk about the hospitality side of short-term rentals and all of that, and how that fits in with the numbers, because actually right now what's at play is there's a lot of episodes like ours where people are saying, hey, yeah, get into short-term rentals, make investments, you're going to make loads of money, but ignoring the other side, which is equally, if not more important for this business, because it's the lifeblood, is the hospitality side. So we'll have a chat about that. But STR Insights, it's one of the most novel solutions that I've seen and heard of for making key investment decisions. So basically figuring out where you should invest if you're looking to take on new accommodation or new properties. Tell me about STR Insights' journey and how it helps solve that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to pandemic days when I'm rolling in the dough, as you can call it, from having all these vacation rentals, and I as someone who works in with banks and investments and essentially work on the street, we know that we need to diversify our portfolio. And so in real estate investing, I guess in vacation real estate investing, that means having properties in different locations. But what I found, especially as a numbers guy, is, I go on social media, I'd ask, okay, where's everybody at that they're performing well with their vacation rentals? And I'd get in the United States, and I'd get, the common ones we hear, like the Smokies or Gulf Shores or Destin or, Yucca Valley, if we're thinking West Coast, just these big popular markets that everybody knows about and everyone's essentially chasing. And I would look at the numbers, and for me, I'm a cash flow guy. I want to know, what's my cash on cash return? And for me, it has to be a minimum of 30%. So basically, what's the amount? How quickly can I get my money back that I put in? And I wasn't really finding any of those markets to be very lucrative markets in terms of getting my 30% cash on cash. And they were outside of my budget. So I was stuck. I'm like, where can I go and invest? And I purchased many other data tools. I paid thousands of dollars to answer this question. Where should I invest based on my budget and my personal preferences? It needed to be, I had some weird preferences. Like I wanted either in this state or this state in the US. And so long story short, nobody could provide that information. They could only tell me revenue of all the markets and how they perform, but they couldn't tell me a purchase price. They couldn't tell me how much vacation rentals cost in each of those markets. So that's where this idea came from. And I said, you know what? I think I can figure this out using my background and knowledge and resources. And so I went and did it. I figured out across the entire country what vacation rental homes were, essentially what they cost at that time to purchase in each of those markets, and compared them with their revenue. So now with those two numbers, I was able to take and calculate a gross ROI. And once I have that, I then can compare every single market across the country and see which ones are the top ones that I should be in as of today, not last month or last year. So that was really powerful. I used it on myself. I found a property to test it out. And then I went to a bunch of investors, fellow investors, I should say, and essentially pitched it to them and said, do you guys find value in this? Would you use this tool to help you find your next vacation rental? And they were all like, yes. Absolutely. And they got super excited. And anyway, so that was kind of the encouragement to really get it going. And that was over a year ago. And so we built it up. And essentially that's the point of STR Insights today, is to help investors find the top grossing markets across the entire United States based on their personal preferences. And that's really important. So when I say personal, it's like, do you prefer to be in beach markets or mountain or lake or ski or river? We have all the markets broken down by that, because ultimately deep down, vacation real estate investing is both emotional and logical. It's not just about the numbers, but there's got to be some sort of draw to it too for us to invest in a market. So,
sure. And look, and that can go with the whole strategy of the business as well. I think that quite often there's this dream of, I'll own short-term rental properties in the best locations, but that's not necessarily a thing, because there's another overlay that you need, which is the staffing in that side, right? So you need to make sure that you can provide linen, that you've got the cleaners, that you've got all the infrastructure that's required to run this kind of a business. So that overlay has to come in, and that's the next iteration of your tool to add a huge layer of complexity. But the point is this, folks, if you're listening, if you're looking for an opportunity, right? So you'll jump into a tool like AirDNA or Transparent, which are fantastic tools. And then generally those tools are going to tell you how a market is performing. So we'll go in and I'll go through and say, this is how much we think these properties are making. This is what we think the occupancy is. These are where we think the hot locations are. But the problem that you have is that it might be a hot market, but the cost of real estate might be so expensive that for you to get a good return on investment, you just aren't gonna. It's gonna take you years and years, or you might not even be profitable with that particular location. So what Kenny is doing is actually solving the second part of the. Oh, so by the way, and to find out if the properties are worthwhile, then you have to go to a different tool. And you have to go onto a real estate website, then try to find properties within that range and see roughly what they're going for and what the price of them is. And then you can get the data, and then you've got to combine them back together, which is the data of how properties perform in the short-term rental market, and then combine it with real estate values. and then hope that your data is more or less accurate. And then you can go and say, okay, this is a profitable area. Now, you can hire someone to do that, which will take them a bunch of time. You can do it yourself. Absolutely. But you're trying to run a business, you're trying to scale, you're trying to do all these different things. And to find those next opportunities is incredibly difficult. So here what Kenny's saying is, why don't we just offer a service where we can combine the two sets of data points to then scale quicker and to solve a lot of those problems of finding the best opportunities. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, 100%. You're saying it better than I could ever say it. I'm a data numbers guy. I will talk numbers all day. Yeah, so that is a lot more clear than I could ever say it. So I love it. I'm excited about my own tool now, even more so.
I'm going to be applying for a job soon, or investing some money. It's beautiful because it's such a simple solution, and this is the point, folks. We're not saying sign up to STR Insights. That's not the point of this episode. The point of this episode is for you to understand that those two data points are incredibly important, and using a tool like this will be useful to you. Now, you can do it in different ways. So you can get the AirDNA data, and then you can match that up with real estate data, and then you can kind of converge the two and then figure out where you want to go and what you want to do. So, and that's a very traditional way to do it. But let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone who's looking to scale, right? So I'm in one city right now. I've got 10, 20 properties. I'm doing okay, but I'm thinking, all right, I want to go into that next, to the next marketplace. Kenny, what's the next best step in terms of that person trying to figure out what they're going to do? And I don't want you to focus too much on STR Insights. I want to sort of say, anyone who's anyone, what would be the next best step to figure out that next marketplace?
Absolutely. So the number one thing, and this sounds stupid, and a lot of people kind of, I can see when I tell them this information, they go, well, I already know that. But 95% of investors don't do this. And that is, you need to write down what your personal preferences are. What I mean by that is you need to say what regions I would like to invest in. What are my revenue goals? Not just ROI, but also it has to make X amount of dollars for me to be worth it to invest in that market. And you need to know particular destination types you want. Is it, and kind of like a why. Why am I investing in why do I want to invest in a particular market? Is it because I want to drive there, travel there, or is it simply because of the numbers? There's always more to it than just the numbers, and you have to identify that. And if you don't identify that, you're going to have a harder time trying to gain the confidence to invest in a market you've never heard of or been to before. So those are the first three things I would just right off the bat, write down those goals and preferences so that when you do identify the right market, they all align, and it's a lot easier for you to feel confident to go in that market and make that purchase.
How do we figure out what the financial goal is meant to be? And that's something I'm sure that you've wrestled with quite a lot because of the way that you've scaled your business. Let's say I've got those 10 or 20 properties and I'm turning over $1 million or whatever. How do I know what that revenue goal is? It just seems a little bit opaque.
Sure. No, I get that. But I mean, think of it this way, there's the hospitality side of the industry. You still have to deal with, I say deal with, but you have to help guests. You have to interact with them. There's going to be issues at your properties and so on. So how much does that property need to make for it to be worth it for you to invest in that particular market / property? I mean, there's some great markets out there that, have incredible returns, but you're making maybe, $25,000, $50,000, depending on the size of the property. And even bigger properties, they're not going to do over 100K. And so, yeah, the returns are great, but is that worth it for me personally? And if you're wanting to make, millions of dollars, you might want to look at, you need to know, okay, these properties have to make a minimum of 200K gross for me to feel comfortable investing in that market. Gotcha. So that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, great. And I think the other thing that I would encourage people to do on the back of that, and you were talking about the why, is establish your vision. So a lot of people do struggle with the why. Like, I don't know what my why is, but figure out a vision. What is it that you're trying to do? What is it that you're trying to achieve as a company? And as soon as you can start talking about that vision, you go, well, my vision is to be in 5 different states in the next 3-4 years, to have a portfolio of 100 properties. Or have a portfolio of 50 properties or 20 properties, or I want to be able to, my vision is to set up a company to be able to afford the education for my kids. Whatever that vision or whatever that goal is, you'll start to drive towards that vision and that goal. And then when you're making the next decisions, then this will tie into those goals and vision. Because otherwise, this is what happens. And Kenny, you'll know this very well. If you don't have a clear vision and clear goals, what happens is when you pick up a property, you start to say yes to things that you shouldn't be saying yes to, and they don't align with that particular goal. And all of a sudden, an aunt or an uncle or a relative has said, hey, can you manage my property as well? And it's in an area that you don't understand, you don't have the cleaners, it's not making you enough money, the whole thing doesn't make sense. You said that you were in property management, so you should be able to do it, but it doesn't align with your goals, your vision, your strategy overall. Now, the vision drives everything, but your strategy to get there can change. So just be aware of that as well. So anyhow,
beautifully said. I love it.
look, this is, I guess, it's really important for people to, I find that vision part gets lost a lot, especially people talk about it, but it's hard to equate it to yourself. And people, because you're kind of following other people going, you kind of take on their visions. And I'll be honest with you, within our business, it took me years to really start to understand what the real vision is. And it's super clear now. We're going to help everybody, empowering them with their marketing and their promotions for direct booking websites. That's my little plug there. But yeah, good. So, right. We've got that first part down. So we've figured out our vision, goals, and then location as well, and what kind of market we're going to service. Okay, so that's, are we going to do beachside accommodation? Are we going to start to diversify and now target nurses and doctors and things? So try to find your lane, so to speak, and what your preferences are within what you like to service. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably add in too something new that's come up. So as times change, your strategy, your investment strategy should change as well. We need to adjust with the market. You can't just rent out any old Airbnb or vacation rental anywhere. It has to be in, not just in a good market, but in the right location too. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, in terms of finding the right market, I always tell people, first and foremost, you should be targeting markets that have regulation, because there lies opportunity with them. Mm. People, when they hear the word regulation, they think, oh, no, I don't, I'm scared of that. But what's more dangerous than a market with strict regulation? A market with no regulation. And going back to the data and the numbers, we're seeing markets that are dealing with oversaturation. We're talking about 25% year over year saturation, which is huge. And there's no end in sight. There's neighborhoods, communities being built of strictly short-term rentals. So you're going to be competing with all these different hosts on these brand new properties. And so you're going to have to bring in all these great amenities and kind of step up your game, which ends up meaning you're going to be competing on price. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to compete on price. And so regulation is a great way. So markets have regulation is a great way to find essentially an artificial barrier of entry for that market. And what I mean by that is, so I recently purchased a property 3 hours away from me using my tool, but it told me of a market and I checked it out. I was like, wow, there's some strict regulation here. But the property I purchased had a short-term rental permit. I was able to buy the property and be grandfathered in. That city is no longer allowing, or I should say, they're no longer allowing. They've capped the number of short-term rentals that can be there to 80, which is not very many. There are over 1 million people that go through that the market I invested in every single year, and there's only 80 vacation rentals there. So that opportunity doesn't come around. It basically put me on an island. And I've seen this happen time and time again. Several other markets that are set up very similarly. There's many across the country that have this kind of regulation that you can take advantage of. by finding a property to be grandfathered in that's for sale. And I think we're going to see a lot more of those properties pop up in the next couple of months.
I think also importantly with the regulation part, it's important to note that especially if you're buying property and you're relying on the returns of short-term rentals to justify that purchase and to pay it off, if you don't have regulation, there is the risk of regulation coming in, which could adversely affect your property or your portfolio and then put you under a huge amount of pressure because, hey, all of a sudden, for example, I know of a bunch of countries have put in caps of 90 days or 180 days. So now you can only rent it out for half of the year, right? So that's one part of it. The other great thing about regulation is it gives you certainty. So once you move into a market, if it has been regulated, you know what the rules are. You know that it's great for the guest because they get more certainty. It professionalizes the industry, and therefore you're in a much better position as a business person to make smart investment decisions. What's fascinating about this, Kenny, is that we haven't even gone into the next part of figuring things out. But if you are looking to look at new territories to invest in, that sort of thing, these are the things you need to think about, which answers the question of this whole episode. So now we've kind of figured out that overlying part, regulations as well. What's next?
Yep. When finding a market or property?
Bit of both. So I'm trying to find a new market to go into. I'm looking to buy something, I guess. I've now considered what my preferences, my visions, and my goals are. And now I'm kind of, where do I look? What do I touch next to sort of try to figure it out?
Sure. So, I mean, let's set STR Insights aside, because if you plug that information in STR Insights, it's going to tell you the right answers. So assuming that we're going to have to go out and do our own research here, I would recommend targeting what I call tier 2 or what I call piggyback markets. So markets near tier 1 markets. What I mean by that is, like, if you're looking in the Smoky Mountains of the United States, you think Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Surveyville. What are the tier 2 markets? They're going to be your Townsends or your Cosbys that are next to or near these other markets. The housing prices are not caught up to what the revenue of the properties in those markets are making. So that means there's good opportunity and there's good potential deals in those markets based on simply that the housing prices might not be in line with what the revenue of properties are. So basically, a lot of these places, a lot of markets, tier 1 markets, Destin, Gulf Shores, Asheville, people are selling vacation rentals as vacation rentals. So they're listing it. They're saying this was a successful vacation rental. It's made X amount of dollars over the last 2 or 3 years. I'm selling it for an overinflated amount.
A multiple on that, right?
You want to find, yeah, exactly. And you want to find markets where it's in a vacation rental market or near a vacation rental market, and it's the owners that are selling it, that residential owners. So people who have lived in the house or the property, that it could be a vacation rental. So that's one unique strategy I found that works as well, especially my own portfolio, is if I know that I can legally do that in a market and that's protected, I can take on a new property and the owners used to live there, they're not going to price it. They're not going to take into account the income that I can generate as a vacation rental. So that's another strategy too. I would look into doing. So tier 2 markets, so near big, popular markets.
Right. Okay. So I love those little tips and those little gems there. So I guess is an overarching theme to the answer to this question. We're trying to find opportunities where everyone else isn't looking at that particular moment. Is that kind of the right answer there?
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard the cliche saying, when people zig, you zag, and this is exactly how you do it. I mean, this is what you do. There's several ways to do it. I mean, like, we just went from going to tier 2 markets, also the regulation strategy. I mean, those are 2 separate strategies that you can take advantage of. But I mean, it's different from how people are thinking now.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do if you want to get the returns that you expect.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if we were to break it down into a list of things to do, and I'm sure that there's ones that we will miss because we're kind of on the fly, but we're looking at revenue from the property using a tool like yours or an AirDNA. We're looking at real estate websites to figure out the value of the different properties in the different areas and what's been sold and what's trending for different areas.
Yeah.
So that's where we can look at it there. We're looking at regulation, which is incredibly important as well. So you could look at everything, think this is the best thing since sliced bread, but then you look and then all of a sudden the market's just regulated in a way that isn't good, or there's ordinances coming up which are going to change everything for you. So you must look at that regulation part. And I guess the last part is also looking at staffing and the hospitality side of this. And I think this is a nice little segue into this. And I think maybe we'll start closing out the episode with this hospitality side of it. And I'd love to get your thoughts and your views on this, because we run a hospitality business. The success and failure of this whole project is based on how good we are at understanding our market, providing exceptional service. And that's what's going to really, you can sit there and scale all you want, but if you want a business in 5 years' time or in 2 years' time, this is the part you have to get right. When we're looking at new territories and new areas, do you have any tips or takes on how to incorporate the hospitality side into it?
Absolutely. I think one of the number one things when you do your research that you have to do is you have to check what I call what's the barrier of entry into that market. So what are the basic amenities that I need to succeed or do well in that market? Meaning go to the top properties, find the top properties performance-wise, click into their Airbnb listings or VRBO or direct booking listings, and see what their amenities they are that they're offering. And then you've got to match that. You've got to match that hospitality. You've got to see the things. It's not just about the amenities either. You've got to take in the decor, and you've got to look at the reviews. What are the things that people are saying great about those properties, and what are the things that they're complaining about? Can you fix those problems? And if you can, and you can add those amenities, you can really stand out in those properties. And so that's one of the things too I consider going back to the original question again, not to take us back, but looking at those, because every market, their barrier of entry is different. Not to pick on, the Smoky Mountains, but I will. But the barrier of entry we know is exceedingly high. There are cabins in the mountains of the Smokies that have indoor pools. I didn't know that was a thing until a couple months ago, really. I thought, whoa, that's a little bougie or luxury. But there are subdivisions of these cabins that have indoor pools. That's uncommon in almost all market or mountain markets across the United States. And so whereas if you go to the other side of the Smoky Mountains, like in North Carolina, a game room is almost unheard of in a lot of the cabins in those rentals. And so you can stand out more easily in those kind of markets. Now the revenue numbers are different and traffic is there, and there's all these other things to consider, but look at the amenities. Look at the easy wins, the low-hanging fruit. Can I stand out, and what can I do to better raise the bar in each of these markets? And then you have to constantly check too, even though you've done that, when you started out and found that market and bought a property and listed your listing, now you've got to check each year, is the competition outdoing me, and how do I set that standard to be better?
Yeah, beautiful. And then just the last one, any thoughts around staffing?
I would recommend targeting markets that have more than 100 active listings, because then you'll actually have options in the marketplace. So cleaners, maintenance folks, linens, all 9 yards. And the good thing is in STR Insights, we do track here are the market sizes, so that you can easily filter and only look at, certain markets. If you're especially looking at a new market, you're like, I don't even know where this place is and how many active listings are there, and how do I know that there's staffing to help me out?
Yeah, beauty. Okay, Kenny, I think for this particular topic, I think we've done a fair whack and took people through a bit of that process, a bit of that journey that they can take towards scaling, and some ideas that I think everyone should take away. And I want to implore everyone that's listening to the Accommodation Show to really recognize that a lot of the discussion that we've had today is not just about short-term rentals. It's about hospitality, accommodation, about building and scaling a business and that sort of thing. And you can do it in many different ways. But kind of having these different principles and ideas in mind, it's really going to help you get there faster. Kenny, is there anything we can do for you, or any way that people can reach out, or if they wanted to take advantage of STR Insights, do we have any special offers? Actually, I know that we do, but tell everybody.
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, if you want to reach out, I mean, you can go to our social media. We've got a social media page. It's at Short-Term Rental Insights. But we also have a website and a tool. It's strinsights.com. So that's strinsights.com. And we have a promo code for all of our products. We offer one product based on 3 plans at a time. There's a monthly, quarterly, and yearly plan, and we're giving 10% off. And the promo code is the Accommodation Show. And you just put that right in at checkout, and boom, you get your 10%. Yeah, that's just a little thank you for hearing me out here.
Yeah, beautiful. And look, the good thing with this sort of product and where Kenny's at is these tools get super expensive very quickly. Expensive in my view, but not expensive in terms of value derived. And right now is a really great opportunity for those that are listening to jump in and get this data, get access to it before everybody else does. And as soon as everybody else figures it out, I guarantee, and Kenny probably will say, no, we won't do that, but the price of his product will go up because it'll be incredibly valuable. So once the market rushes at it, then that's it. That's where you get priced out. And then the big guys and girls will be the ones that buy those products. And that's what happened with different tools, just so that you know. Now, Kenny, you're amazing. You're a wealth of information. I love your enthusiasm as well. And I like that you like to get your hands dirty and get in there and buy properties and keep yourself in the game as you're building this startup. We're looking forward to hearing your journey along the way. So please keep in touch and come back onto the show when you're ready. Folks, if you are tuned into the Accommodation Show, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode. So leave us some comments below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, then give us a thumbs up. Leave a review if you haven't done that yet. We really appreciate it. And it will really help with the episodes and help us keep on doing what we're doing and getting awesome guests from all over the world, from all sorts of industries within the accommodation space, sharing their tips and insights. Kenny, once again, wish you a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you, Bart. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Take care.